Think about it. In our world today, crimes don't just happen on street corners anymore. They're happening on servers, inside emails, and in those invisible streams of data that connect every part of our lives. So the big question is, how do investigators find the truth when the crime scene is just a massive maze of ones and zeros? Well, in this explainer, we're going to demystify exactly that. To really get our heads around the digital world, let's start with something we all get, from TV shows and movies, the physical crime scene. This simple analogy is going to be our guide through all this. At first glance, you might think, not much, right? One is so tragically real and physical, and the other just seems, abstract. But when you get down to it, they're both about one single thing: the methodical, careful search for truth. And you'd be surprised how similar the principles for finding it really are. And here's where we see the huge difference. At a physical scene, investigators are literally in it. They can see the evidence, they can smell it, they can touch it. But a digital crime scene, it's completely invisible. You can't be in the data. You're always looking at it through a screen, through layers of software. And the evidence itself is incredibly fragile. It can be changed or deleted, poof, with a single click. So when you're dealing with a crime scene that's this abstract and this fragile, you obviously can't just wing it. Investigators absolutely need a strict, structured plan to make sure nothing gets missed and that every single piece of evidence is handled the right way. We call these plans process models. Just think of it like this. If you don't have a map, you're just wandering around lost. Having a formal methodology makes sure the investigation is complete. It cuts down on the chances of making mistakes because you jumped to a conclusion or felt rushed. It's really the blueprint for finding the truth. Now, over the years, a ton of experts have come up with dozens of these maps or process models. And honestly, the result is this really complicated web of different terms, different steps, and different phases that can look pretty overwhelming at first. But here's the thing. If you boil them all down, a really clear, logical sequence starts to emerge. First up, preparation. That's planning the whole thing and getting the right tools for the job. Then you've got survey, figuring out all the potential places evidence could be, like laptops, servers, or phones. Next, and this is crucial, is preservation. You have to carefully collect and protect that evidence so it can't be changed. Then comes the really deep dive, examination and analysis, where you're searching for and trying to make sense of what you found. And finally, presentation, reporting your findings in a clear, objective way. So that's the blueprint. But what does this process actually look like when investigators are on the job? Well, a powerful visual metaphor can really help bring it to life. I love this analogy. Imagine the investigation is like climbing a staircase. Each step, from identifying that a crime even happened, all the way to presenting the evidence, builds directly on the one before it. You just can't skip steps and expect to get to the top. And that handrail holding it all together, that's case management. It's the constant, ongoing process of documenting, organizing, and linking everything together. It provides the stability and support you need for the entire investigation. Now, if we zoom in on those big steps, especially during that whole examination phase, investigators are doing some really specific kind of cool tasks. Recovery is basically digital archaeology. You're digging up files that were deleted or hidden away. Harvesting means you're not just gathering the data, but also the data about the data, things like when a file was created or last opened. Then, of course, there's organization, which is grouping and tagging everything so you can actually make sense of it all. And finally, reduction, and this is so important, filtering out all the noise so you can focus on what actually matters to the case. Okay, so following a process is one thing, but making sure your conclusions are actually, sound is something else entirely. This isn't magic, it's a formal science. And the foundation of that science is a principle I bet we all learned back in school. And this is absolutely crucial. A good investigator doesn't just look for evidence that proves their theory. They do the exact opposite. They actively try to disprove their own ideas. It's all about being rigorous, being objective, and being ready to change your mind the second new facts come to light. And what is this? It's the scientific method in action, right? An event happens, that's our observation. The investigator forms a hypothesis, which is just a theory of what went down. Based on that theory, they make a prediction about what kind of evidence they should find. Then comes the experimentation, testing that theory against the actual data. And finally, they draw a conclusion based on what they find. Let's look at a quick real-world example. Say an investigator needs to know if an important email was really sent on the date it says it was. The first, most obvious theory is, the email in the sent folder is legit. But to be really sure, they have to test an alternative idea or hypothesis. No, the sender faked the date by rolling back their computer's clock. So what do? They test that idea by digging into the system logs, looking for any evidence of clock tampering. When they find nothing, they haven't technically proven the email is real. What they've done is they've refuted a key alternative explanation, and that makes their original conclusion a whole lot stronger. And that's the key takeaway right there. It feels a little backward, but it's such a powerful idea. The more you try and fail to prove yourself wrong, the more confident you can be that you're actually right. This whole process, called falsification, is what turns a simple hunch into a solid, evidence-based conclusion. So why do we care about all this? Why do these rigorous processes and scientific principles matter more today than ever before? Because our lives, our businesses, our entire society is now built on data. I mean, from corporate espionage all the way down to a simple fender bender that's caught on a dash cam, the digital trail is literally everywhere. In this new world, every investigator, whether they're in law enforcement or corporate security, absolutely needs a reliable map to navigate the evidence and find the truth. And that leaves us with one last big thought to consider. With a smartphone in every single pocket and a digital footprint that follows every step we take, is there even such a thing as a purely physical crime anymore? Is it possible that today, every single crime scene is now in some way a digital crime scene?